Hello, this is C doing another video. I think it'll probably be fairly quick. Fairly quick video, I think. There's all these cones around here, marked off the area. So it's just really about Djinn actually, and other entities. So if you've ever had an entity visit you in your night, maybe you've seen a black shadow by your bed or something. I think there's a car coming. No, then it may be that you just, well, there's a few different things you have, okay? So you might feel that something's watching you, and that's sometimes the sign of either an actual person's watching you or an entity's watching you. And why you feel that feeling is because when our minds are always busy. So when all this chatter going on in our mind, it doesn't matter what we are, really, and we project this out. So at some frequency that's coming out of our minds. So even though we're not using sound, but then again, sound is like that. Sound is the carrier wave for the information that we decode, and you say it's a language, and then you hear it's a combination of sounds, but there's also consciousness behind it as well. So you can feel, I mean, okay, you can tell if someone's angry, or there's more happy, or whatever. You can usually tell that anyway. But there's another factor as well, and that's basically your consciousness is a kind of driver as well behind what's going on. So these things, when they're thinking aloud, or they're thinking about things, you pick up on it. You can sense their energy, so some of them think of them project outwards. But see, not all of them are the same. These entities are not all the same. So I've had it at night. I mean, the best way to test it, this used to happen when I was a child anyway as well, because I used to have entity experiences from a very young age. But what you'd have is this casting of shadows, and so if you closed your eyes, you could see the room, like you could see like the redness of your eyelid, and you could see the room, but then you'd see like a shadow would pass it, or something would pass in front of it, and then you'd suddenly be aware that you're not alone, because nothing else is moving in that room. Okay, something could fly past the light, but yeah, it's going to be quite rare. You'd know, then all you've got to do is open your eyes, look at the light, and you'd see it there. But sometimes you can use this to your advantage. So these entities know that when you sleep, you're not conscious, and so when you close your eyes and you're in a relaxed state, and you can just keep your mind quiet. But that's the main thing, keeping your mind quiet. So not trying to think of anything. Which could be hard for some people, but you know, doing meditation and stuff, it's not really that hard. You just got to keep your mind focused on nothing, and then you've got more chance of seeing some activity. But once you notice the activity, don't think aloud anything about it. You might want to open your eyes, and then maybe you just move your hand to the side of you. You might actually feel like the energy is different in areas of the room. So I talked to you about the Djinn and other entities as well. So you've got things like greys or some type of alien entity. I don't know what they are really. It's possibly that they're just so old that they travel here and there and visit humans, and for all sorts of reasons, and that they're in a different wave frequency as well. So yeah, they're basically a different frequency, and so they'll probably give you eerie feelings, if anything. And if you're in a darkened room and your eyes are closed, but you can kind of, I mean, I can now, maybe I've got my, what it is my third eye active. So I look, my eyes are closed, but I can still kind of see in the room, and I might see the outline of a shape there, or it might see a face, and it's fairly black. So these things are a low different frequency. I mean, the other night I had an eye mask on over my face, and I was laid down, I looked around, and I could see like a purple blob there, this purple blob in darkness. Now I've seen it before, and I think this is this female Djinn that's attached to me in some way, and she I'm assuming it's a she, so it's purple, but there's like the black as well around it where the hair would be. Or it could be another type of spiritual attachment, but I don't think it is. It's purple. You have to remember our frequencies. Now, so it says about something about the ultraviolet spectrum. That's what it does as well. There's a taxi, you can go down there. Yeah, so basically we're on the infrared spectrum. So this is why when ghosts come into the room, maybe they're at the other end of the spectrum. So we think of ultraviolet as just being warm, but maybe there's a negative light spectrum, so it'd be like blue light. So you might feel the coldness, or you might feel warm or temperature changes. But we're on that frequency band, and that's kind of our spiritual band, I guess, as well. I'm assuming that. And there's things that are in these ultraviolet type band. Now, I don't think ultraviolet is necessarily the opposite end for infrared. It's just in a different wave frequency altogether. So you've got this thing, and I'm seeing purple. So I'm assuming this thing's got some type of. It's on the ultraviolet wave spectrum. So it tends to watch me. And it's next to me. I know what it's doing. What happens when we go to sleep? Our mouths open up. Now I think this thing sometimes lives inside me as well, and I'm not even aware of it. And anyway, that probably sounds odd, but I've been recently reading a sort of a manual to do with manuscripts and things to do with the Djinn, and it's more like Middle Eastern mysticism. It talks about them acting as spirit guides and a Djinn attachment to human hosts. And it talks about possession and other things as well. So when you're asleep and your mouth's open and your spirit's probably gone elsewhere, you've drifted out, it opens the doorway to let it come in. And I don't know how it gets in there. Maybe it has to break into you somehow. Jailbreak you. And sometimes, well, there's something else weird as well. When there was David Politis, and he was doing this stuff. He's the guy that does the 411 national park stuff, missing people. And he talked about a case where now it tend to be ghouls as well that are into these sorts of things. He talked about a case of a woman, an old woman. And so she looked like this guy's grandmother, this little kid's grandma. She was chatting to him a bit, and then the weirdest thing, she turned around and said, well, before you go, can you basically, I need you to go poo on this bit of paper. And she wanted him to have a shite on a bit of paper and give it to her. And it could be because it contains all these nutrients and different energy, so DNA and all sorts of things in there that it wants. So it may be going inside you to extract stuff from the entities, but for what reason? It might be after bacteria, or who knows what exactly is in. Because it may be a certain energy it can use. And the other thing, when people are scared, as I know adrenaline goes up and they give off energy, but also they're more likely to crap themselves, and their stomach's going to react in a different way as well. So I don't know if that would be any use to an entity. I'd have to figure out what's so holy about shite, basically, to another being, and you'd assume that it's, what benefit? Maybe it's sold or something. Maybe it's used to something to trade in. I don't know. But yeah, ghouls and stuff like bones and things like that. For graveyards, you find these things around graveyards hanging about. And I guess the question is, like, why with aliens, why don't they see people? Why don't they come and see people and stuff? I think it's because they're in a different frequency. Now, we understand about planets being out in the universe. What we don't understand is that maybe the elements are a different frequency, and anything made of that composite of elements isn't quite there anyway. I mean, they got something. I think they had a planet pass another planet, like the sun, and it become transparent. which doesn't make any sense. There was something like that recently. I know that they say about Venus that it hasn't got a solid core or mass to it. I don't think it's that. I think it's just in a different frequency. So a lot of weird things can go on when you're in a different frequency. Like we might have one sun, but that sun might be in different dimensions. So you might have other planets that are just like dark things moving around. And sometimes we do get weird flickers around the sun and, you know, gravitational influxes and stuff. And the other thing about gravity is they say it goes off into a different dimension anyway. So it's kind of a conscious construct. Like I need to have a fixed webbing in order to build something on, like a net. And so that's why the planet is on the plane that's stuck onto the net. So some other stuff as well is that when we look at things, because our eyesight's curved anyway, our brain naturally straightens it out. And so when people look at things like flat Earth and so on, so it's very flat, it's also the visual function of our eyes would basically alter the image. But then again, if we're in a different dimension, it's bent round something, it's not going to matter really. Is it like a curvature of light? So there is flatness there, but it's bent. It's like a disc, you know, like a laser disc. You get information off it, but that's because it corrects the fact that it's a spinning disc. So it reads at one point, and which is what we do operate. We're operating at one point in our consciousness, and it reads everything in front of us. It constructs the reality in front of us. What's there is lots of frequencies, hard light, soft light energy, you know, all these things, and that's determined by the actual frequency. But there could be a bandwidth where everything hard lives in that zone, and that's where basically the atoms are constructed. Like they've got mini force fields. Otherwise, they say, well, if you get into a bath, why don't you just melt in with all the other water? And that's because our DNA and so on has got this frequency set up, and so there's a barrier there. So it's very much holographic at a level of the universe, because there's things that don't make sense. So when people come across with flat Earth, it's not that necessarily they're wrong, it's just that their version of reality, oh fuck's sake, Jesus, I mean I did put my indicators on, they do actually work, but as I was coming around a corner, this other car didn't want to stop. I just wish they were a bit more clued up really. Nobody wants to be stuck out in the rain all day. Let's let him go. So yeah, anyway, back to business. So going back on the Djinn, it's just endless cars. A different wave frequency, but maybe there's an interaction between them and other beings. I mean, there may be things they don't pick up on that exist. And that's maybe why things watch you in the corners of rooms before to go to sleep, so they can try to hack into your body. They want some information out of you. They can't achieve that when you're awake. And I used to have these kind of, I don't have them so much now, but I used to have almost like sugar crashes. And sometimes I would sense like something in the room. It's like I've been knocked out by something, which I think is weird. So yeah, anyway, I'm trying to think of anything else I can add on to that. What reality is. I mean, I had someone today ask that. She said, what's outside of reality? And I thought, well, that's a bit of a big word. And the woman's got some learning difficulties, so I'm thinking, why is she asking that? But I do know she's got esoteric interests. Well, that could be a spirit. So the body she holds and the higher self are somewhere different. So, and when we talk about higher self, I guess it's her consciousness a higher level's guiding her, but it's not trapped or contained or controlled by emotions and other things. I mean, it could be influenced by them, but it doesn't. It's the higher goal, you know. This is where you get to this point here. And so she asked this big question, and so she didn't really give me any other information, so I had to sort of explain about reality, and I just said, well, it's basically energy around you, that's what you're looking at. So what you perceive in reality to be, and beyond that, is everything else you can't understand or pick up on. And then I said, well, there's, you know, is it paranormal you're on about? That's outside of the normal. Or what's considered normal. You know, metaphysics beyond the physical. You know, all these sorts of things. So yeah, it was just an interesting conversation with somebody who was a higher self. Because she kind of heard me, but she took some of it in, and some of it just sort of went. She just sort of heard, oh yeah, that's great, yeah, and she's sort of going into a different subject. So I don't know if that kind of, whatever was inside her or whatever was looking for information. But then she sort of brought up about a ghost story she told me, and it's about Royal Berkshire Hospital, and that there's a Roman soldier or something clangs its armour. And when she was there, she heard this clanking of armour. And the nurse said, yeah, sometimes that happens to this soldier, turns out. Like a ghost, and I think it's quite like that. So yeah, there's definitely more. So I got into the metaphysics, and then I say last night I had this eye mask on, and I saw this entity there. She didn't seem harmful or anything, but if I turned and ignored her and I looked over there, it seemed like she was closer. But then she was surprised maybe that I'm aware of her. She couldn't fully understand it yet. Who knows? Anyway, this is Pixie signing off, and have a great one, whatever you're up to. Take care, bye.